lives, 11, and more than 40,000 homes are underwater now. The damage is extensive. Since the weekend, 30,000 people now have been rescued. Nearly 3 feet of rain fell on parts of the state.
The location of our site, East Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana, is located on the eastern bank of the Mississippi River, approximately 80 miles northwest of New Orleans in the Gulf Coast region. Like many cities, Baton Rouge was built off of the foundation of a major water supply, the Mississippi River, for the strategic resources that it provided. The ability to move shipments of goods over the Mississippi River allowed for the expansion of industry and agriculture. In the past, Baton Rouge flooding was embraced, but due to the sprawl of urban development, the city could no longer afford to allow floodwater to be so unpredictable. By Tuesday, August 9th, the National Weather Service issued a flood warning for the parish and surrounding areas. By the 10th, a mesoscale convective system forms that would stay over Baton Rouge for the remainder of the event. And by August 11th, the storm had already dropped 6 inches of rain in some areas. August 12th begins the first major downpour of the Baton Rouge Deluge, which would last until August 14th, when the storm began to subside. As rain falls, the infrastructure of the city is designed to circulate water through its stormwater management system and divert the water into the natural watershed, such as the Amite River watershed, or into man-made bayous and canals. In anticipation of a major flood event, the 100 and 500-year floodplains were established when the size of the city remained at a moderate scale. But in the expansion of the city, the floodplain is dramatically altered, causing inconsistencies between the floodplain mappings and the inundation zone of the Great Flood. The majority of the city of Baton Rouge's metropolitan area remains free of the disaster as water is diverted away from the city, whereas areas that are surrounded by watershed tributaries and canals are overloaded and suffer the worst flooding. This is in part due to the fact that the land surrounding these tributaries has reached its saturation point, in addition to receiving stormwater piped out of the city. The natural disaster dumped 7.1 trillion gallons of water, which is equivalent to 5.7 times the amount of water in Lake Pontchartrain, and nearly 3 times the amount of water estimated during Hurricane Katrina. A quick look back at previous major flooding events will show you that in many cases, the areas that are hit the hardest by flood damage are typically in more impoverished parts of the city. These areas typically lack the essential infrastructure needed for a major storm event, lie in a floodplain, or suffer from years of decay. In the case of the Deluge, the event surpassed any preconceived notions about classes flooding and affected all social and economic classes in Baton Rouge. Additionally, many people whose homes and businesses flooded did so without flood insurance. Only 12.5% of homes and businesses had flood insurance prior to the Deluge, which left thousands uninsured. If a home or business lies outside of a floodplain, that individual is less likely to invest in flood insurance. In fact, the probability of an event such as this happening again is 0.1%. While this number seems low, the probability of, say, winning the lottery is dramatically lower, making it over 29,000 times more likely for this event to happen again than to win the lottery. So as a result, nearly 65% of Baton Rouge homes flooded, leaving only 35% dry. The 65% of homes flooded resulted in $8.7 billion of damage in the parish. The debris that accumulated during the event covers nearly 4.8 million cubic yards, which is enough to fill the Pete Maravich Center at LSU 19 times. The city contracted out the work to several private outfits who continue to circle the neighborhoods home by home, which required 80,000 dump truck loads. The history of Louisiana is a history of communities learning to live with water and learning to shape water to our own means. Therefore, the people of Louisiana are deeply rooted with this land. Their culture and way of life is influenced by where they live. When the storm was at its worst, the community was at its best in reaching out to those in need. Despite overcoming this tragedy, the people of Louisiana cannot afford for this to happen again. The deluge of Baton Rouge and the devastation that followed was caused by the combination of complex relationships between the natural landscape, urban infrastructure, outdated policies, and the ever-changing climate of the world. So what do we do about this? Do we design to prevent future flooding? Do we design to live with flooding? Or is it wiser to pack up and leave? Our research has shown us that there is no single answer to this problem. Complex issues like these require us as designers to see the problem from all angles and investigate every possible solution if we are to prevent this from happening again in the future.